Change is inevitable in the IT field. Whether it's updating to new equipment or changing direction mid-project, you're bound to come across a lot of changes. In this video, we're going to talk about change management. This is just the method we use to ensure that changes are implemented as smoothly and effectively as possible. Most organizations have an official approval process for change management. A business commonly uses change order forms to document these requests. Change order forms are different for each company, but they typically ask for the change's purpose, scope, and extent, along with the risk analysis and rollback plan in case things don't go as expected. So, after filling out your change order form, what's next? Well, first it must be approved by the change board. A change board might consist of one person or many people who approve changes to the project. Board members might be managers, project supervisors, and maybe even the CEO. If you were developing this project for a customer instead of for in-house use, the customer would need to approve the changes as well. The first thing the change board will want to know is why you want to make this change at all. You'll want to explain why the change is needed and whether it'll improve a current process, save money, or add additional functionality. You might also be asked to explain how it fits within the organization's current strategic focus. The change board will also want to know the scope, what exactly the proposed change will entail from start to finish. A scope has many components, but it should always include outcomes, cost, personnel, and systems. Some other questions you'll need to have a ready answer for are, what are your desired outcomes? What exactly do you want to change? What are the desired deliverables? How will you know when the project is complete? The board will also obviously want to know how much this is all going to cost, whether in money, time, or resources. You'll want to consider which personnel you'll need to implement the change. Will you need developers, technicians, or administrative staff? Be sure to include the contact information for a point person who can serve as the change board's primary contact for the project, if it's approved. It's also important to explain which existing systems will be impacted. Most likely, you'll be working alongside live production systems, and any changes should be carefully planned out. Will there be downtime or potential conflicts? If so, you'll probably want to set up a sandbox to test the proposed changes before you implement them. As you can see, if there's literally anything you think you might need for your project, you want to include it in the scope. Before you propose a change, you also want to analyze the potential risk. Yes, even small projects come with some risk. Be sure to ask yourself, what could go wrong if we implement these changes? After you think through that, the next obvious questions are, how are we going to avoid these problems? How difficult will it be to backtrack if things turn out worse than expected? Is the outcome worth the risk? If it turns out that the risks outweigh the rewards, you probably want to rethink your approach. Now, before you start anything, make sure you get written approval for your changes. Written acceptance protects you, the change board, and the customer. This ensures that all of you have a complete understanding of the proposed changes and what they could entail. You want to avoid misunderstandings that could hurt your own or your organization's reputation, or that might end up causing expensive problems. Documentation is critical to any project from start to finish. During the implementation stage, you want to be sure to document all the changes you've made along the way. Include the specific approvals you've received. Once you're done, be sure to follow your organization's end user acceptance process. This ensures that someone who's going to be using the system verifies that it's working as expected. And be sure to document this as well. That's it for this lesson. In this lesson, we discussed change management. We reviewed the information that's commonly needed for a change request. Then we went over the importance of documentation during a proposed change's approval and implementation phase.
2.4.2 Change Management Facts. Change request. Purpose of change. Most organizations have an official approval process for change management. Change order forms are commonly used to document a change request. Change order forms are different at different companies, but they almost always require you to provide a few key things. Requirement description. This section includes, why do you want to make this change? Why is the change needed? Will it improve a current process, save money, or add additional functionality? Does the change align with the organization's current mission and strategy? Scope of change. The scope asks, what exactly do you want to change? What are the desired outcomes or deliverables? Will you need to request funding to cover new hardware or software? What about man-hours? Scope of will you need programmers or technicians or administrative staff to work on the change? Who is the primary contact? Which existing systems will be impacted? Will there be downtime? How will you know that the change is complete, and what quality control measures will you have in place to ensure that the project is complete? Risk analysis. Risk analysis asks, what is likely to go wrong if we implement these changes? Are the risks worth it? Backout plan. A backout plan specifies how you will return affected systems to their original states if your implementation fails. Change approval. After completing the change request form, it must be approved by a change board. A change board might consist of one person or many people. Change board members are chosen before the project starts. They are the people who must approve changes to the project. Board members might include managers, project managers, executive management, customers. Implementation. During the implementation of a project, make sure to document all changes that have been made along the way. Include any approvals that you received along the way. Once completed, be sure to follow your organization's end-user acceptance process. This process ensures that someone who is going to be using the system verifies that it is working as expected. Be sure to document this verification as well. 2.4.3 Practice questions. Explanation. A backout plan specifies how you'll return affected systems to their original state if your implementation fails. The risk analysis, scope, and purpose are parts of the change management process that are often documented on a change request form, but do not cover returning a system to an original state. Explanation. A backout plan is the portion of a change order form that details how you will return affected hardware and software to its original state if the proposed change fails. A risk analysis is the portion of a change order form that details the risks of the proposed change and presents a plan for mitigating them. A rollback is an operation that returns a database to a previous state. A system image backs up all data on a drive volume. Explanation. The change board and, often, the client/end user must approve changes before they are initiated. The change board may include the CEO, managers, or other personnel, but approval from persons outside the change board, such as a marketing director, sales rep, or regional rep, is not generally required. Explanation. What the board member really wants to know is how the requested change will fit with the company's strategic focus to move business online. The scope, deliverables, and desired outcomes are also questions that the board will want to know more about, but they do not relate to the strategic focus change of moving online. Explanation. The scope asks what the desired outcomes or deliverables will be of your project. The purpose of the change, risk analysis, and backout plan sections do not provide the specific deliverables. Explanation. Generally, a change order form requires you to explain your change request in the following order: purpose of the change, scope of the change, risk analysis, backout plan. The other options, such as change board membership, are not generally required information. Explanation: most businesses require executive sign-off on a project's plan, budget, and risk assessment before it begins. A change order form is the document used to request changes to a project that is underway. A slide presentation or analysis spreadsheet are not required, although they might be useful. A customer acceptance checklist is important, but only after the project is completed. Explanation: change management forms will ask you the purpose of the change. This includes how the change aligns with the organization's current mission and strategy. The scope, plan for change, and change implementation are parts of the change management process, but do not include alignment with the organization's mission. Explanation: given this scenario, the best course of action is to request to add an automated 401k management function to the program you are developing for small businesses. It would be best to hire a contractor for 3 reasons: your deadline is close, it cannot be moved, and you have a lot of extra money in your budget. You can afford to pay a contractor, and that will help you both create the new feature and meet your deadline. This course of action minimizes risk because you already know that you are creating a feature your customer wants. You already know you have extra money to pay the contractor, and a contractor working outside the office will have little impact on relationships or morale within the company. However, the main risk is that using up the extra budget could result in going over budget if there are problems with the project. It is a best practice to regularly save copies and backup copies of all data. A backout plan could be reverting to the version of the software if there are major problems adding the 401k management feature. Adding flexible savings account management is an easier option, but it doesn't give MakeStuff the functionality they requested, so this course of action doesn't produce much value. This scenario gives no indication that all clients desire 401k management, so trying to provide that function to all clients is outside the scope of the solutions necessary to meet MakeStuff's requirements. Explanation: the responsible staff person is the primary contact person for the project. This is sometimes the same person who submits the request or who does the most work, but it doesn't have to be. The responsible staff member is usually not the person who is responsible for performing most of the project work.